What is Twitter? Okay, now basically we've already talked about social networking sites, but Twitter is unique because Twitter, by definition, is a social networking site. What were the three categories that defined the social media? What were the three? There were three things. One was tagging, right? Right? For social media. Second was what? Ratings, huh?
Comments?
And comments, right? Now, Twitter redefines a lot of these. They actually have their own vocabulary, and it's a little confusing if you don't know about it, right? There are basically two actors, okay? One actor is basically a follower with the ER, and the other one is follow. This is a very important distinction because this took a lot of time for me to even understand. This difference between the ER, the follower, and the follower are probably the two most confusing terminologies. I don't know why Twitter came up with something so similar, but it makes a lot of sense if you understand one sentence. Followers are people who basically choose to follow your Twitter account. They choose. They make a decision. They say, I think this person's interesting, so I am going to follow them. Thus, I will become a follower. And then this person in your Twitter account, whoever it is, can follow other people. And they can follow other people that are also on Twitter. And that is the key thing. Why this becomes a social media site is because of one very fundamental concept. Social media, by definition, means you can tag, you can rate, you can post comments. And I'll tell you how Twitter does that. But what is interesting about Twitter is that you have to join, thus making it a social community, right? That's why it is a social networking site, an SNS. They have to join in order to become a follower and follow. Now, does this person have a choice who is following him? Who becomes his followers? No, he doesn't. This can do it. Can he block them? Yes, he can eventually block them if he doesn't want to. He can do other things. But the whole idea is that unlike Facebook or High Five or Bebo or MySpace, you choose your friends. And then your friends accept you. Here, there is no acceptance. In Twitter, people can just randomly start following anyone. Okay? Now, Twitter ran into a big problem. They realized that people were following a lot of people. And they said, whoa, how can this be? So they blocked it now to about 2,000. 2,000 is about for every basic account. Once you get over 2,000, then they have a logic that allows you to expand over it. So you can only do a maximum of 2,000 followers. In your followers, you can create something called lists. And these lists will help you break down your followers by categories that you go ahead and create. That is like tagging. Because tagging, in essence, is basically doing an association between a keyword and a image, a piece of content, a photo, a video, etc. So you can literally organize your Twitter accounts or tag them into different lists. So you can create a political list, you can create a religious list, you can create my favorite list, whatever you want. You can go ahead and you can come up with your own vocabulary and then drop these followers in there. Why is that important? Because if you're following 2,000 people, it's like you're scrolling down and you're looking at 2,000 people, that's a lot of comments. So you can prioritize based upon the list what you want to do. Now, people who have large Twitter accounts, they should be following people that are of interest to them, right? And that's the key thing. Because we'll go into this a little bit, into what we call Twitter tactics. And once you understand Twitter, you can go ahead and develop Twitter tactics. And I will give you basically 5 easy basic tactics that everyone should do on Twitter. But real quickly, in terms of vocabulary, Twitter, by definition, is a social networking site. A lot of people use the term micro-blogging, which just confuses it even more. And the reason why they use this term is because blogging, by nature, is basically allowing you to post up comments. But if you went to a blog, are you limited by the number of characters you put? No. But Twitter says, in order for us to become a microblog, we limit to you to 140 characters. Understand? Okay. So here you have your Twitter account, the difference between a follower and a follow. You can decide who you want to follow. Like, I like my friends, I'm going to follow my other candidates, I'm going to follow other political parties, other like-minded people, maybe some columnists, some of the people who are my volunteer group, or people who I think will help me become more educated and understand more about what they're saying. My interests, right? Followers are people who just randomly find you just as you're finding them and follow you. Now, the difference is that you do not have a choice who's following you. But Twitter has added features like we can eventually block that person or etc. Now, we talked about social media having these three major components: tagging, rating, and comments. Well, in Twitter, they have something called mentions. Mentions are basically going ahead and adding your Twitter address. And your Twitter address nomenclature is usually your @ symbol and then whatever your Twitter account name is. So this is a fundamental vocabulary. And real quickly, you cannot operate Twitter if you do not know the vocabulary. So if you don't know the terminology and you don't memorize the terms, you cannot go ahead and be successful at tweeting. You can't twitterate. There's no such thing. It's called tweeting. So one of the things is that mentions allows you to basically go ahead and put at your Twitter. In my mind, that is a form of rating because people who like you, right, and who think you're really cool will mention you a lot. So in essence, they're really rating you. Comments is another terminology that Twitter has, which is direct message, what we call DM, or RT, which means retweet. These two nomenclatures, or direct message or RT, retweet, is a form for other people to comment on your tweet. So when you go ahead and post something on Twitter, the microblogging, you are actually not twittering. You are tweeting. When you post your tweet, people can go ahead and make comments by going ahead and responding directly to you, direct message, directly to you. Or they can go ahead and take your comment and retweet it to all of their followers. Does that make sense? So if someone reads your Twitter account and they like what you say, they might say, wait, I didn't understand that, or could you explain that to me? And just like email, you can send a message directly to them, which is called a direct message, but there's a catch. You have to limit it to 140 characters. Now, if I don't want to contact the person who tweeted it because they're an important person or a big shot, and I really don't want to bother them, right? I might just go ahead and retweet it and share it with all of my followers. By going ahead and doing this to followers and following and retweeting and direct messages and mentions, what you do is you create sort of a viral momentum. That's why it's important that you understand that there are fundamentals. And like we talked about tagging, it's like sort of taking lists or even groups, right, in Twitter. Okay? So there are the fundamentals of social media in Twitter. The problem is that Twitter just renamed them. And the nomenclature or the denotative definitions of what they came up with were sort of implied by, these connotative forms. So follower, follows, direct message, RT, mentions, list, groups is completely different. And so there is no standard language in social media, and that's the problem, because even Facebook now changes their vocabulary all the time. Now they have a fan page, now it's a Facebook page, so everything is constantly changing. Now, one thing that Twitter allows you to do, and these are 5 tactics that everyone can follow. Okay, so I'm going to go, these are what I call the Twitter tactics. Twitter tactic number 1. Create an account. You cannot participate on Twitter unless you create an account. Very simply put. That's fundamental. When you create an account, you have to create a profile. That profile will basically share all your information of who you are. Since Twitter does not provide authentication or verification till you hit 2,000 tweets, it's very important that your profile information not be fake. So you should try to use information that makes you look legitimate. So, for example, I recommend you use like a legitimate corporate or business email rather than a Gmail or a Hotmail, or use an email address associated with your domain name. I also recommend that you also provide a phone number, maybe not a mobile number, but a phone number that is legitimately reaching you. I also recommend that you put URLs or links that automatically describe who you are, so that what happens is if someone wants to validate it, you're driving traffic to those legitimate sites. Once you create an account, the second thing that I recommend, which is very important, is that you brand yourself. Why is this important? Because this also helps with the credibility, but it also allows you to go ahead and create your own Twitter identity. And you can brand yourself in about 3 different ways. A, you can change your profile picture. 2 is you can brand the backdrop of your Twitter account. And C is that you can add more of your profile or contact information on your backdrop or your profile pic. A lot of times people think that, my profile pic is my profile pic, but you can use your profile pic to highlight Merry Christmas, or you can use it for branding of a special holiday or a promotional item or something like that, or you can even brand your phone number or your email address even on the profile pic. Or you can even say it's official or etc. Second is your backdrop could also have not only a creative backdrop that looks and feels like your website or looks like your corporate identity or your brand, but that backdrop could also have official links to other major social networks.